مرحبا وأهلا بكم في برنامج داخل واشنطن. معكم مضيفكم روبرت ساتلوف. أخيرا صارت الانتخابات على مرمى البصر بعد حملة بدأت في اليوم التالي على الانتخابات الأخيرة. يفصلنا الآن أقل من 8 أسابيع على موعد إدلاء أكثر من 100 مليون أمريكي بأصواتهم لانتخاب الرئيس القادم والكونغرس القادم، وبالنظر إلى المرشحين وشخصياتهما وسياساتهما والمشكلات التي تواجه بلادنا، فإن المخاطر بالغة. على مدار فصل الصيف عقد الحزبان مؤتمراتهما الحزبية واختار مرشحيهما لمنصب نائب الرئيس وقدم رسالتيهما إلى البلاد. وعلى مدار الشهرين المقبلين ستتبارى هيلاري كلينتون ودونالد ترامب مباشرة في 3 مناظرات ستتابعها أمريكا والعالم من ورائها، وسينفقان مئات الملايين من الدولارات في الحملات الدعائية التي تستهدف عددا صغيرا من الولايات التي قد ترجح كفة أحد المرشحين دون الآخر في الانتخابات. هذا الأسبوع في برنامج داخل واشنطن يبدأ الجولتان المرحلة الأخيرة من السباق لتقييم السباق على الرئاسة. معي 2 من أفضل الصحفيين السياسيين في واشنطن، وهما ستيف كليمنز ومات فايزر. Welcome back to Dakhel, Washington. I'm sitting here with 2 outstanding political journalists, Steve Clemens and Matt Visor, to discuss what else? Our presidential election. Now that we are just weeks away, we are in what the equestrian term would be the home stretch. But first, let's recap what's happened over the last few weeks. Steve, let's begin with you. Donald Trump, Republican convention. Did he have a good convention? Did he get what is called a bounce, and did it last?
He got a big bounce out of the convention, something that I think was surprising to many people. I attended the convention. I thought that there were many problems in it, including his wife, Melania Trump, plagiarizing a speech by Michelle Obama, Ted Cruz going in, one of his chief rivals in the race to secure the GOP nomination, who refused to endorse Donald Trump. There were lots of problems in that convention, but when you came out of the convention, and I was in the hall when Donald Trump spoke, he commanded that hall in a way that I think very few other Americans can do. Thousands of people were sort of caught in his magic at that moment, and there was a bounce that had come out of that. It wasn't sustained because then the Democrats put on an incredible show in Philadelphia.
Okay, we'll get to that in just a minute.
But definitely, I think people have forgotten, given where we are today, that he did get a bounce, that there is support for him out there in America.
Matt, what do you think was the best thing about his convention, and what do you think is the best thing that's happened to Trump since the convention?
I think, during the convention, I think Steve's right. Trump did a good job at riling up his base. I mean, the people that really support Trump, I think, came out of the convention excited about him. His challenge has been broadening that base a little bit, into a general electorate. I think since the convention, he's had some ups and downs. His trip to Mexico, I thought, was effectively done. The counter to that, though, was the speech that he gave right after that, where he took a much harder line on immigration. But that trip really, there was a quality of him being in a foreign country where I think average people tuning in and watching that see Donald Trump in a different way than I think we've seen him since then. It was stagecraft, which he's good at, and going right to the country that he's criticized so much. And I think he ended up getting the better of the Mexican president out of that visit.
And so explain for our viewers who are in the Middle East and probably don't follow this that closely, this rather odd series of events that he goes to see the Mexican president, a country that he has called rather insulting terms of the people of the country, and then he comes back and continues to say some rather nasty things on immigration after the speech. Why go to Mexico?
We have never had a candidate like this, not in my memory. You know, and I would often think back to a man named George Wallace might have been as outrageous, but we've never had anyone like this running for the highest office in our land before. He has been out there defining himself with most of his base on immigration policy and of this notion that they're going to ship out of the United States about 11 million undocumented workers and their family members. And he's been arguing that they're going to build a giant wall on America's southern border and get Mexico to pay for it. So it is an act of genius that he somehow finagled a visit to Mexico, meeting the Mexican president, who was already on record saying he hated Donald Trump. And so he created a dynamic and coverage. And you have to understand, one of the, you know, while we're rational people saying, what in the world is going on there? He is dominating the news and media. He is dominating the Atlantic and the Boston Globe and all of our conversation and preventing any other discussion of anything his rival Hillary Clinton might do. So what he did, in my view, is he went down and put a punctuation point on the fact that even though he has a hard right view on immigration, he can still go and talk about things with foreign leaders. And so it was an act of brilliance in my book. And that he's also blurred the subject. So some people can see him as possibly having a softer view on not breaking up families, not on shipping everyone out, but those that need to hear that he's tough on immigration and that he will deport all of these folks, hear what they want to hear. So he's created bandwidth for himself on this subject by that visit.
And you saw that in some of the coverage right after that, on that day. You know, there was some confusion over what his policy is on those 11 million undocumented immigrants in the United States and what to do about them. And, you know, some people were saying that he was backing away from that policy. Others were suggesting that it was sort of doubling down on it. And it was sort of different moments, what he was saying to different audiences, you know, was different. And I think, to Steve's point, that sort of allows people to hear what they want to hear from him, and in a way that, you know, he's not being pinned down on that as much as he probably should be, to sort of figure out what his actual policy viewpoints are on that.
All right, well, let's turn to Hillary Clinton. Matt, did she have a good convention? Did she get a bounce? And is it lasting?
She did have I think she had the better convention of the two. You know, the party was unified to an extent. I mean, you had the first couple of days marked with Bernie Sanders and sort of that sort of atmosphere where Bernie Sanders supporters were very reluctant about Hillary Clinton. You had the email scandal with Debbie Wasserman Schultz and her kind of stepping down.
She was the chair of the Democratic National Committee.
So the first day or so was kind of marked by turmoil. But after that, you had a parade of speakers, the heavyweights from the party, whether it's Elizabeth Warren or Michelle Obama, you know, Barack Obama, Joe Biden. You know, you had powerful speakers that the Republican convention lacked. And one of the more unexpected moments was with the Khan family, the Muslim American family, who lost a son in the Iraq War, speak and really confront Donald Trump from the stage about him and you know, his knowledge of the Constitution. And it was one of those moments that I don't think people expected, and they didn't expect it to resonate as much as it did. And I think Donald Trump's reaction to that and criticizing that family caused Trump to have a really bad couple of days after that, in addition to the bounce that Hillary Clinton really got from having kind of a unified atmosphere at the tail end of the convention.
What
Steve,
I have a
you
slight
agree?
difference with Matt, I think that everything he said was correct, and you got a sense at the Democratic Convention of the unbelievable talent that Hillary Clinton can bring and surround herself with. What was fascinating after, you know, being in the hall with both of them, both Donald Trump in his convention and Hillary in hers, how powerful. I was surprised at how he did capture the enthusiasm and energy of that entire hall, and she didn't. And I was actually on the Wednesday night, which was the night before she did her speech. It was probably, in my book, of the many, many conventions I've attended, the best convention night I've ever seen anywhere at any time. The array of speakers, the quality of them, the Joe Biden speech, the Michelle Obama speech, unbelievable array of powerful talks. But on the, you know, I said, she's not going to be able to match that. And in a way, Hillary Clinton's speech is not a memorable one. No one talks about how great it was. It was sort of a grating speech, and it kind of it didn't connect with people, but the array of talent around her did. But no one talks about how great Hillary was that night.
Okay, when we come back, we're going to talk about the next few weeks, debates, and the real final run-up to our presidential election in just a minute. And my guests include Steve Clemens. Steve is Washington editor-at-large for one of America's premier news, opinion, and literary magazines, The Atlantic. Also joining us is Matt Visor. Matt is the deputy Washington bureau chief of the venerable Boston Globe, where he also covers national politics and the 2016 presidential campaign. He's a veteran of the 2012 presidential election, closely following Republican nominee Mitt Romney. And he has also covered Congress and the Massachusetts delegation. This is all probably why he also writes about coffee on the Globe's Double Shot page. A graduate of the University of North Carolina, regrettably, since this is a Duke show, he's been at the Globe since 2004. Okay, let's move forward. The big events over the next month will be presidential debates, when the two candidates will be on the stage at the same time, allegedly answering questions from journalists. What should we expect, both in terms of content and sort of personality around these events? Steve, why don't you go first?
Well, I think that we don't know. I mean, I think a lot of us who watch Donald Trump are going to be shocked if he shows up. I mean, there's going to be, okay, if he does show up, because for him, I think that he uses each moment in a way to elevate the shock value of what he may or may not do. So let's say he does show up, but I think but there's a question mark that many people in professional journalism watching this wonder whether he will or won't. But say he does. The first debate is going to be done by Lester Holt of NBC News, and I think Lester is going to try to bring a very tough balance, very tough questions, very monotone, and Donald Trump is going to be faced in a situation where normally where he's playing to a crowd, the crowd is going to be silent and unresponsive, unable to clap, unable to do this. So he's going to be his own circus. And I think he's going to have to come in and he's going to try to make Hillary Clinton look small. I think that's what and she's got a challenge of making herself not look defensive or as if she's accepting his patronizing stance towards her. So a lot of it is not going to be about content, it's going to be about body language.
Matt, what do you think?
I agree. I mean, I think this is sort of one of the most anticipated political events in a while. I mean, these two candidates couldn't be more different. Them facing off on a debate stage. There's a lot of questions about how Trump does. Hillary Clinton is a lot more practiced at this kind of thing. During the primaries, she was one-on-one most of the time with Bernie Sanders. Donald Trump was on a stage, with 8 to 10 other people. So he could sort of fade during portions of the debate. This debate won't be like that. It's a lot longer. There will be a lot more focus on Trump. He has to continue to engage for a long period of time. So
what does he have to do to reach out beyond that base? I mean, he has a pretty strong, cohesive base, but that's not going to get him elected. What does he have to do to reach out beyond that
I think
base?
there's still, like Steve was saying, I mean, like this ability to sort of see him as presidential. I think the Mexican trip sort of allowed people to start to see that, but I think he needs to, you need to envision this guy in the Oval Office, as a responsible person with the right temperament. And temperament has been a big issue for Trump because he sort of tends to pop off, and sometimes that's appealing to people, but I think other times people feel like you want him to sit and think for a minute before he speaks.
Look, the bottom line for Donald Trump is he's going to try to depict her and paint Hillary Clinton as a protector of the status quo, as someone who is part of the corrupt circles in Washington that have ripped off Americans and not really worried about the average person, that he's better for women than she is, that he's better for the middle class than she is, and that D.C. is a corrupt and awful town that she used to run. And he's going to say, I'm the wrecking ball. I'm going to come in and I'm going to destroy that place. I'm going to wreck relationships. I'm even wrecking my own party, but I'm doing it for Americans that are left behind and looked down on by both the professional Republican class and the professional Democratic class. That's what he's going to do. That allows him to actually be more outrageous and at the same time, in many eyes, look presidential. I think that's a tough situation for her, because the more she remains poised, the more she remains, she can't become defensive. She needs to lay out a vision. And the question is she going to get enough running room to show a vision? We had a debate recently, or not a debate, but an exchange between the two of them back to back, where she didn't rise to the challenge. We had Matt Lauer of NBC talking to her about emails, talking to her about her votes on the Iraq war in the past, but she never said those are not the questions that matter. What matters is making decisions behind the Oval Office desk in the White House. Here's my strategic frame. Here are the priorities I see. And it was really interesting that she never rose to that. So I have my doubts about how well she's going to do. She is going to be looked at by us as having to perform to a higher degree, a higher standard. His standard is going to be low and easy to beat.
This is hers to lose, by all accounts, but how does she avoid playing it so safe that she does lose?
Well, I think that's the challenge for Hillary Clinton, because she is best when her back is against the wall. You know, I mean, she's not a great front runner, you know, as we've seen multiple times where she is, you know, in 2008, caught off guard by Barack Obama, you know, because she was the front runner in that campaign. And similarly this year, I mean, she was the front runner for so long, and Bernie Sanders gave her a challenge that nobody expected would be that forceful. So I think she has to treat this as if it's a very close race. And there are signs of it tightening, and there is a pathway for Donald Trump, especially if these debates could be game-changing moments potentially for him to show a different side, a side that has broader appeal and begins to turn some of the states that are still quite close and gettable for Donald Trump.
Okay, I do want to give our long-away viewers at least a moment to hear about people named Gary Johnson and Jill Stein. Now you laugh, but who are these people, and why might they matter?
They're potential homewreckers. I mean, I think it's very interesting because right now Gary Johnson is running in national polls at about 7%.
So he is the Libertarian Party candidate for president.
And the former governor of New Mexico. He happens to be someone, when I worked in the United States Senate in the 1990s for a senator from New Mexico, Gary was our governor of the state at that time, and I got to know him quite well. He was a hang glider, he believed in smoking marijuana, and he was a Republican, which in the 1990s was a very weird combination of talents. And so Gary is the Libertarian candidate running for president, and I think he is running ahead of most other Libertarians who've tried to run for president in the past. But what's interesting is, and then Jill Stein, just to go into Jill, has won the nomination in the Green Party. So environmentally active Green Party, she has about 2%. So you've got 9% of Americans basically associating themselves with those two candidacies. That affects the dynamic between Hillary and Trump in terms of their overall support.
So on balance, yeah. Who loses the most from the fact that Johnson and Stein are in this?
Most polls, it seems like they poll equally from both candidates. I don't know that there's one candidate who's benefiting more than the other by having them in or out of the race. I think that changes if they get on the debate stage, because they get more of a national audience and an ability to talk to people, because there is a dissatisfaction across the country with both Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. People feel very negatively about both of them, and they would be searching for an alternative. Gary Johnson or Jill Stein just have not sort of yet proven that they have a broad enough
So as of now, not yet spoiler for anyone.
Not yet spoiler, but we'll have to see if the Hillary, I mean, I think what Matt just said is that the race between Hillary and Trump is tightening. You know, it really, I mean, unfortunately it comes down, you want to say every vote matters, but every vote, you know, isn't equal to every other vote. But if you look at the states of Florida, North Carolina, Ohio, and Pennsylvania, these 4 states have much greater impact on the outcome right now because they're battleground states that seem to be up for grabs. And where those states go, the presidential race will go. So where Jill Stein and Gary Johnson become important is if they shift the votes between Trump and Hillary.
Okay, we only have a few seconds left. Very quickly, any one wild card we should look out for in the next 2 months?
Oh, I think, you know, the emails continue to be a persistent issue for Hillary Clinton. If there's something that comes out, and there haven't been bombshells in these emails, but her handling of them has been bad enough to where we're still talking about it. A year after these sort of revelations came about, it's still an issue for her.
I don't see any wild cards. I call this period we're in the boring nightmare. So in other words, it's awful, they're awful choices, but we all know how it's going to play out, and it's grown dreadfully boring for many of us who are watching it. Just want it to be done and over, and I can't see any, you know, I'd say with the one exception, and I would even discount that I worry a lot given this era that we're in, that we've had some major terrorism incidents in the United States. We've had a situation in San Bernardino, one down in Orlando, Florida, in which a lot of people, that tenses up the public and it changes the way they see their future equities and votes. If that happens, that could be a game changer in favor of Trump more than Hillary.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. Fascinating. Look forward to having you back either just before or just after our presidential vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
بهذا نصل إلى نهاية هذه الحلقة من برنامج داخل واشنطن. إذا كانت لديكم أي استفسارات أو تعليقات حول هذه الحلقة، وخاصة حول العلاقة بين المرشحين الرئاسيين والمرشحين لمنصب نائب الرئيس، أرجو أن تراسلوني مباشرة على عنوان البريد الإلكتروني التالي insidewashington@alhurra.com. معكم روبرت ساتلوف. شكرا لكم وإلى اللقاء.